All right, I'm doing an update video. I planted these Arbor Day Foundation oak trees 6 years ago exactly. So in June of 2017, I checked the channel before. And so this is the beginning of their 6th year. So they've been 5 years in the ground. And that's them behind me here. I'll switch the camera around and we'll talk about them a little bit here. But surprisingly, they are doing very well. But let me switch this and we'll check it out. All right, here we go. The update video. Now, let me turn so I'm not in the sun. I'll talk about them from this angle back here. So if you check the other update videos, they actually sent me 2 different types of white oak trees. And so there's these kind here with these type leaves. And then the ones up there just have a solid oval leaf. But I took care of them very well. You can see along the bottoms, I like using this type of drain as a protector. I just cut them like this, and it's just like I guess it's a 4-inch plastic drain pipe that you put at like the end of your downspout or something like that. And I use this as a guard when they're young for the rabbits, my weed whacking especially, until you get real bark. Once you get real bark on them, the tree can take a couple hits. And as it grows, it'll just split. So you're not going to constrict the tree in any way. But I've weed whacked them. No mulch. I don't play that mulch game. What a pain in it butt mulch is. But look how big this one is. It's busted out of it already. And when I first started them, I put cages around them. So I put the tube and then I put cage around all the trees. And you can see around these younger ones, I even had T-post or stakes. Now these are beech trees. This is something different, but I just want to show you how I put cage. I put the T-post, and then I put some other type of protector. Actually, I think I made those years ago. A telephone pole broke, and that was a plastic coating that covered the cable to a telephone pole in the ground, like a support for a telephone, and it was just on the ground. So I took it and I cut it and I drilled holes and I made tree protectors out of it. But when I first put in a tree, even the oak trees had T-posts, wire, and then this plastic pipe around the bottom as a protector. So the trees, let's talk about these trees. I've trimmed them. I've trimmed every one of these trees as they grow. You can see some of the old scarring that's healing. You got to cut your trees. You got to cut your branches when it's still young enough to where it can heal. See how it can heal itself? If you have a tree and you've got a 6-inch branch and you cut that branch and you think that tree can heal that and cover itself up, it will. It'll take a long time, but the tree will have a dead cavity in it, and then it'll close and it'll have a hollow spot. It's too big. It's too big of a branch to try to heal itself. Now you can see on this is a good example here. There's layers. Here's a layer. Here's the next layer of growth, and you can see how I cut it. This is a good example right here. Now, here's the growth of the tree trying to pinch itself close. That's the branch inside there. That's dead. That's dead material, and it's just enough time for that to close, and that dead stuff, it'll heal over. But if that's too big, you're going to have a hollow cavity inside your tree, almost like this. See that? Which will lead to problems. Here's the next layer on the same tree. Much bigger than that, you're going to run into problems. So if you want a nice tall tree, like if I wanted this to be taller, I'd have to cut all this growth off right here now. I'd have to cut all this off right now up to the next layer up there before it's too late. You don't want to start like that's a pretty big branch. That's a little over 1 inch. And if I was to cut that off, that'd probably be the max I'd want to mess with a tree before I'd be worried about it getting a disease before it re-healed itself. So let's say you were cutting these trees for lumber. Doesn't matter if it's black walnut, white oak, red oak, whatever tree you're using. It's called board feet. So you want to have more board feet, and a straight trunk is more valuable. So right now, from the ground to here, I've got just about 6 foot, well, a little over 6 foot of board straight log there. So to make that more valuable, if I cut that layer off right here, and then I would have 12 feet, at least 12 feet of straight trunk, kind of like this pin oak back here. If you can see that, let me zoom up on that. I did that to that tree there. So that trunk right there is amazing. So if I ever wanted money, that is so big around, and there's enough straight board feet without knots on it or branches where it's more valuable. So the more straight trunk you can get out of a tree, no matter what kind, the more valuable it is. And I do this here in the backyard so I can cut around it. I kind of want a grove of woods back here, but I want to be able to walk and mow without ducking under branches. These are still pretty low, so I will probably cut these more. I'll wait till fall and I'll come back and I'll trim these some more. These trees right here are probably 16 feet. So they're 16 feet high in 5 years, and about, I don't know how big around that is. I can't get my hand around it. So that's how big they grew here. The trees, the closer they get to the bigger trees, they get less sun. Especially this one, he's kind of tucked in here, so it's not going to grow as fast. Here's another beautiful one. Look at the bark on it. Look how nice that trunk is. That's solid, hard bark on that trunk now. Again, you can see the layers where I trim. This was the last trim job in the last fall. So it's going to get it all right here. The same with those. I'm going to cut them up again. I'm telling you, you got to get your board feet out of them. This will all get cut. This layer right here will all get cut off. That one's still caged because the dogs might think that that's something to play with still. They won't mess with those. They're pretty big, but this one still looks like the dogs would still try to get it. Now, look at the difference here. These oaks are that type of leaf, and instantly, as soon as you come to these ones, this is the other ones they gave me, it's a whole different type of bark. A whole different bark on this oak. Now, it's still white oak, but this is the type of white oak we're talking now. A bigger, wider, giant oval-leafed oak tree. This one is the tallest one. Golly, that thing's over 20 feet tall. That's a tree right there. But I don't know what kind it is. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 4 of those out of those. And then the rest of them are I call them like the normal white oaks. This is what I like. If I'm hunting in the woods, that's what I'm looking for a white oak. So 4 out of the batch. Now this one's probably going to die. This is what I call like a normal white oak. I don't know the scientific name, but you can see how in my little grove of trees, this one is next to the giant ones. He's tucked in here. And these it's going to get choked out. It'll get choked out. Same thing happened here with my beech tree here. I cut it. I cut this. I didn't rip it out of the ground yet, but that beech tree was growing in here, and you can see. Look at all the branches growing on this oak now. It almost looks like it's poison ivy growing on that oak tree, but it's not. That's branches. That's all new branches growing because it's getting sunlight here. This beech tree and this beech tree here. Like, see how thick this is? Well, that one was doing the same thing. It was a solid wall of beech trees, and what it was doing was pushing all its branches into this oak tree and killing it. Well, yeah, it would kill it eventually, yeah, but the branches weren't getting sunlight, so I cut it out, and now a little bit of sun is coming in there, and the same thing I did with this one. This was it was a really big, pretty beech tree, but let me stand back. You could see how there's no leaves on this beech right here, and this side was flat. So that tree was flat there, and that one, and this one was in the center, and they were just choking each other out. So I cut the middle ones out. I cut the middle ones, and they're gonna kind of fill out, but it's still growing too big. See how this grows? Like, see how many branches it has? It's almost like a giant bush instead of a tree. Almost like a giant bush. So I'm actually thinking about cutting that one out too. And just leave the one here, and then 2 rows of them here. These are beech trees here, same thing. And I've been training them. Look at all my prune jobs on this. Look how many times I've cut branches on this thing. Like that one's got to go. To try to get a tree to grow instead of a bush, but it's really tough. Look how it grows. They're like giant bushes instead. But I wanted the seeds. I wanted beech nuts. That's why I got beech down here. And it's working well because it's actually pretty nice and shady down in here, even though they're not giant trees. Like right now, I'm walking in shade from them. This backyard was so sunny. I mean, it's nice for a backyard. Sunny, dry, and hot. And you only came back here to cut grass. So I started making this back corner back here woods. A little corner of hardwoods. Here's the mama tree. I planted all these trees. I did this. All these trees I transplanted from other places, if not started them from acorns. Look at the size of this tree. There's my hand. That thing is a giant. I call this like the mom tree because I take the acorns from this tree here. This is where I get my white oak acorns. And yeah, see, we're going to get some more this year. See the acorns starting? So I've done other videos. There's acorns all over it. I see a whole bunch. Here's a whole patch of them. But all these acorns will fall on the ground. And when I see blue jays, rabbits, all back here, if I look in the backyard and I see them, I know it's time to come get these acorns. And white oaks, you plant them that year. That fall, you get them in the ground and planted. Whereas like red oaks, back there, I planted from seeds. I've got a wall. I got a wall of red oaks behind the big pin oak that I planted from acorn seeds myself. But they have to be stratified. So you put them in the fridge over the winter and plant them in the spring. But white oaks, all these white oaks, you plant that year. You gather them, you plant them that year. But you got to be real careful because you got to cover them with cage and everything because it doesn't matter. Birds, critters will eat that. Even if it started a sprout of a tree, even 6 inches tall, they'll dig it up and eat the rest of the acorn that's in the ground. It tells them where the acorn is. I've learned that the hard way. So if you're starting oak trees and you got a patch of them in a, let's say a raised bed, doesn't even matter. They'll see those little oak shoots, sprouts coming up, and they'll dig them up and eat whatever is left of the acorn. So, but that's the update on the Arbor Day Foundation white oak tree plantings. I forget how many I have. I should have checked the video, but I've got 4 of that kind, and then the rest were, I call them the regular kind. And I think I lost probably 2, maybe 3. I think I had one in the middle here and one right there because I put them like in a triangle that way. So maybe 3. I'm gonna say 2, maybe 3 I lost. I'm not sure, and all the rest lived. And I don't know why those didn't make it because, like I said, I really take care of the plants, especially the trees. So one more thing I'm going to do, one more trim job on all these to get those branches up to that good height like I was talking about earlier, and then they are on their own. And then 60 years from now, 100 years from now, somebody could harvest them and get a few $1,000 at least if you wanted to cut your trees down in board feet of lumber. Or leave them, whatever. I'll be gone.